how the hell, what is the mechanics by which certain Orthodox Jews, unfortunately, during the time of COVID, both in Israel and in America and other places, decided that while they're not woke, most of them are not. I know them personally; they are not woke. They understand what's going on. They understand what happened to Trump. They understand what's going on with Iran. They understand what's going on with trans. They understand They understand everything, and they even can see maybe offhand, you know, Pfizer posting about rainbow flags and these guys posting up about rainbow flags and all this kind of stuff, but they can't like understand that that's connected to the crap that Pfizer gave them. Where's the disconnect happening? What's going on that they're just falling for this Gnostic fruitcake shtick? And when I say shtick, I don't mean funny stuff. I mean like trick, parlor trick. They fell for that shit, man. Well, not all of them, a lot of them. And you try to talk to them about it. Oh, there's this, and then they respond like, there's this thing in the frum community, especially the Hasidim, about being against vaccines, and we don't really, we're for science. And you try to tell them, guys, listen to me. Dr. Zelenko is the first one to tell you I'm for the regular vector, what's called vector vaccines, but this is not a vaccine.
I wonder if he would be, with
I don't know.
the revelations coming out.
I understand. I'm just saying, like, let's put that conversation even aside, and let's just say, for argument's sake, and you try to tell them, and Dr. Zelenko, his own words, whatever, and other people, their own words, but now they're separating. This is mRNA, and this is regular stuff, regular extra crispy, or what's made with what's called extra CRISPR, and you try to like get into the nuance of the thing. Anti-vaxxer, are you a doctor? And then you bring him doctors. Oh, the doctor that charged people money, or the doctor that does the horse pace. Oh, the guy, the right-wing insurrectionist guy. Oh, this guy. Oh, that. And it's just like it's like talking to the guy from Idiocracy, the guy that's greeting people in Costco. Yeah. Welcome to Costco. I love you. Welcome to Costco. I love you. What the flip happened to them?
Tell me when you're done with the question.
No, I just want to remind people, these are Torah Jews. These are, let's say, the men, even the women.
Are they?
Listen. Let's put aside emunah and bitachon. Let's put aside faith and intuition and all these other things. A guy who sits every day, just from an intellectual standpoint, let's even assume he has doubts about Hashem. Let's assume he has doubts about Mashiach. He's sitting every day and he loves, I've met guys like this. They love Gemara, they love Talmud, and they go into they find what's called a stira. They find contradictions and things that don't make sense and logical issues in the Talmud, and they use their brain. These are the same guys who took their brain and threw it, as we say in Israel, to the garbage when it came to this stuff. That's it, I'm done.
Shall I begin?
Yes, you shall begin. And while you do that, I'm going to go find my wallet for a second because I need something.
I'll wait because I need to.
No, I can hear you. I can hear you.
It's a psychological thing.
Fine.
I'm not going to talk to a partition.
I'm here.
All right. So I just want to explain just a moment because some people might be tuning in for the first time and they have no idea about the Torah. They have no idea about religious observant Jews and what that really means as opposed to what's visible nowadays.
Yeah.
So the Torah is that people are learning now is castrated and it's censored. And I would say in the last 40 years.
Yeah. Okay.
It's like the Care Bears. No, the Care Bears are more like, honest and truthful. Not in the sense of like, they're lying, but like they're more raw.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like Judaism became, just in the past 40 years, became like a children's show.
Yeah.
It's everybody is a child. There are no adults in the religious world, even among the so-called rabbis. We had rabbis. We have a few. There's always been a few. But in our generation, there's a lot of so-called rabbis. Okay, and this is a reflection of the general state of the world, or I should say, the state of the world in general. Okay, it's not just in the Jewish community. You got a lot of frauds and fakers everywhere you go. You know what I mean? Like everybody who's like in the public eye right now and famous for something is like just is a shell of those that came before them. Yeah. Not even a shell, the shadow of a shell. Think about music. Think about just anything, right? Like, folks, if you listen to people speak, even politicians, even dirty politicians in the past, you could listen to them. You could listen to how articulate they were, to how clear-minded they were, to how they spoke. And you didn't hear, nobody can talk even nowadays. Like, you used to listen to radio.
I feel like we're having, like glitches, like robots have like these, like little bleeps and bloops.
Yeah. Radio announcers from the 30s sound more coherent than leaders of nations nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so that's just the state of the world. But and unfortunately, the rabbis of or many of them in this generation have also kind of fallen into that. Okay, and folks, by the way, this is a prophetic thing, because we have a tradition in Torahism, Judaism, whatever you want to call it, that in the generation of the Messiah, the coming of the Messiah, the real Messiah, for the first time. Okay, this is going to be the state of affairs in the world, where everybody is, it talks in detail about what people will be like. And 20 years ago, when I was learning this, I was like, wow, things are kind of like that. Gosh, not as extreme as what it says in the prophecy about what people are going to be like. Somehow, the prophecy has been fulfilled. It's been fulfilled. Okay? How shitty everybody's going to be. All right. So, to understand the difference between the Mickey Mouse, Barney rabbis, well, I'm talking Mickey Mouse like, as like a children's thing, right? Forget about for 1 second the Disney conspiracy. Just for 1 second. When I said Mickey Mouse, I meant kid stuff. Okay, Barney, kid stuff, whatever, cartoon kid stuff. Right? Yeah. So to understand the difference, you have to. I think the last rabbi that most people can access, who is a good example of what a real Torah scholar or person in general, was Rabbi Avigdor Miller. He's not the only one of his kind. I mean, he is actually quite unique, but there are other rabbis that treated Torah with this sense of reality. You gotta listen to him to understand the difference. He has like a whole bunch of tapes and stuff like that. Yeah. I wish it was better known. Now, I don't agree with every last thing that he ever said, but you can tell that this person is dealing with reality, with the human experience. Mm-hmm. All the ugly, the dirty, nasty things that people experience, and which he addresses and he talks about it, which rabbis nowadays they don't. They just kind of they gloss over everything. Yeah, it's not a real. Okay, that's so today the Torah is censored. The Torah teaches us how to deal with the real grit of the reality which God placed us in. The actual, the terrifying, painful, gruesome, gritty shit that people actually have to deal with, and still somehow maintain a sense of spirituality, connection, and in fact, further than that. Okay, specifically in the grit. Folks, we didn't create the shit that we're in. God placed us in it. God created it and then placed us in it. The Torah is telling you that's the case and then how to deal with it. You can't just, ignore it, like all the uncomfortable things you just gloss over. You don't even talk about it, right? So it's a very radical difference in the way Torah has been taught.
Yeah.
And just in the past 40 years, it just evolved rapidly, degenerated rapidly. And I know that because you could still listen to the teachers from before 30, 40 years ago. They made tapes, they made recordings. Just listen. The contrast is shocking.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's number one. So that's the main thing. That the primary answer to your question is that you can sit and learn and you can recite the words, but if you don't have a teacher that teaches you the reality of it, you're going to be a mindless lemming.
So apart from what you're saying, even I understand that aspect in terms of the you're talking about the content aspect. I'm talking about even if that's the case, these guys are sitting and they're even so learning how to think at the very least.
That's what I'm telling you. Dude, listen, if me and you are sitting with I have my volume of Talmud open, you have the same one, we're sitting and we're discussing the text. And by the way, folks, just on a side note, if you think that you understand something about the Talmud by reading a translation of it, you are very, very deluded. Okay. And some of those Jew haters out there that like to, isolate certain verses, not verses, but certain lines from the Talmud, which are not it's not a straight narrative. It's not a novel. Okay. You couldn't understand a line of Talmud if your life, literally, if your life depended on it. One of these, these Talmud critics, right? Folks, I just want you to know, if one of you out there is one of these Talmud critics, or one is, just so you understand, if somebody put a gun to your head and said, I need you to translate and to understand and to properly explain this one sentence in the Talmud, you wouldn't make it. If your life depended on you, couldn't. That's but it fits into what we're talking about because if you're not guided correctly, because the Talmud is the oral tradition, even though there's words on a page, it's not. Those are just bullet points. All the sentences there are super abbreviated, super concentrated bullet points that you need your teacher to transmit the tradition to you as to what that means and how it applies. Well, just like it always did. Folks, there's a time when the oral tradition, none of it was written down because it's supposed to be oral. Okay? Some of it was written down because of all the wars and all the Jewish communities that were being ripped apart in the land of Israel and sent into various places in the Roman Empire. So in order to preserve the tradition in a very coded way, by the way, okay?
Yeah.
It needed to be written down in a certain way, okay? And it by no means represents the entire oral tradition. Folks, if the entire oral tradition were actually written down, it would, I don't know, the Library of Congress wouldn't have enough room to fit all the volumes necessary to transmit it. So my point is this. You could have people just like those Talmud critics, right? Sitting there with their English translations and creating fantasies based on that.
Yeah.
All right. Don't understand what they're reading.
Yeah.
And they can spend 7 hours looking at it. The same thing we have the supposed guys who are sitting there and learning. Just because they're sitting in front of a Talmud and reading the words doesn't mean they know what they're talking about. Okay? It takes a real teacher who is really connected to reality and who really understands the real world implications of that passage to transmit it. And who gets that nowadays?
Not many people.
Okay, so very few, unfortunately. Okay, so I'm not saying that I get it, but I've been in the presence of. I've had a small amount of time to learn with people like the one I'm like people who are able to transmit it.
Yeah.
I had a little bit of time. That's why I can tell the difference between somebody real and a bunch of scrubs.
Yeah.
All right. To use an old word from the 90s. All right. Most people, the answer to your question is that it's shocking, but most people, even learners, are scrubs. They don't understand they don't understand what the meaning of the words that they read, how that actually looks in the real world. They confuse the map for the terrain.
Can I up the?
You understand?
Yeah, no, I get it.
The map
Yeah.
is you got to know how to use a map and how to translate that to make it usable.
They don't know what the topography is. They think it's just like a flat piece of surface.
Right. Just so you understand that the reality is very different than the word. Like you got to take the words with you. Take the book with you. God and the world. Go to Bangkok and survive with the words. The words. If you understood what they meant and they absorbed into you and they become part of you and they're in your blood and in your mind, you could survive Bangkok temporarily because you don't want to go there, to test yourself. Okay. You're only going there if you're going on a mission to do something good and then out of there. But while you're there, you can survive if you know what the Talmud is saying.
Yeah.
We don't have that.
Yeah.
Okay. We have a bunch of people who don't have access to real teachers anymore because they're becoming more and more rare. Okay. Yeah. We have some of their recordings, some of their teachings, which is basically all we have left. Okay. We don't have any real leaders. And by leaders, I mean rabbis who would die for their congregation.
Yeah.
Rabbis who would rot in a dungeon, die in a dungeon rather than allow the community to ransom them.
So can I up the ante a little bit? Now you mentioned these rabbis. I would venture to say that some of these rabbis, let's say it's a rabbi who knows how to, I'm sure there's one of them who knows how to think, who knows how to get into the kishkas of what you're talking about, of the text, into the real Torah. He wasn't necessarily, blackmailed or bribed. He made a mistake. I'm sure there's at least one or two rabbis that literally made a mistake. They have not, unfortunately, they have not come out in public to admit their mistake. But what I'm curious about, how did they come to that place of making the mistake in the first place, of being sucked in by not like, maybe it could be like, I thought about this. Maybe let's say it's a rabbi in Israel, right? So he's sitting all day in the house of study. He's not paying attention to the woke, all kind of the nuts and bolts of the woke. He knows the woke exists. He knows all that stuff exists. He knows everybody. He loves Trump. He acknowledges that Trump, declared Jerusalem, officially as the capital. That he declared the Golan Heights. He acknowledges this rabbi acknowledges all those wonderful things. He's like, all against the woke and all that stuff. But he doesn't get into the details because for him, it's like if you come up to this rabbi, he'll say, I don't want to like get myself into this what he calls it shtus, because it's just like, why do I need to see this? Why do I need to poison kind of my neshama, stain my neshama by looking at this stuff, right? That's their answer. No, listen, you can nod all you want. That's their answer. That is their method. That's their answer in life, right? So he's not paying attention too much to what's going on kind of in America and the Western world.
Answer your own question.
I'm saying so. But at the same time, you could see that even if you're peripherally looking at it, or you're not paying attention at all, you could see that this is who these people are. You could see it. Just open your eyes a little bit. You don't have to go on Twitter every nanosecond like us. Just open your eyes a little bit. You could see that these guys are freaking fruitcakes. And there's the same people that are giving you the vaccine. So like, I don't know, man. There's just a lot of people. I know for a fact I have a friend who sees all of their fruitcakery. He sees it. Even if he's not as active like me, he's active enough. And for some reason, there's like this compartment in his brain reserved for the love of mRNA.
Okay, so
I don't get it.
So when do I begin? No, I'm not trying to rush you. I just want to know, when do I begin to respond?
No.
Okay. There's no way to not sound like a douche, but I didn't mean it in a douchey way. I just wanted to know.
Yeah.
Maybe you still had some more to add. No?
I always have more to add, but this is just a basic thing that I wanted to.
Okay, I want to make sure
these are. I'll tell you what. These are things that are happening in front of my face. I'm literally watching. There's a friend of mine. I'm literally watching him look at the elephant in the room, and he's pretending that it's a stuffed animal, not a real elephant.
Okay.
In Russian, I'm going to say это просто пиздец. But anyway, go on. Sorry.
It's okay. Sure.
Yeah.
So, Rabbi Green is not a hippie.
Yeah.
If you notice that his statements on the vaccines are all backed up with halachic rulings.
Yeah.
I don't know if you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
He's bringing the sources from the rabbis from the past when they were present, like in the 1700s, 1800s, and in the early stages of vaccinations, right? And you see the statements that they made, and they're shocking. They were very much against vaccinations because the main rabbis they ruled essentially that you can't purposely endanger yourself with something experimental that has a potential for a certain percentage to harm. You can't, basically, according to Jewish law, you're not allowed to possibly kill yourself because it might help the population.
Yeah.
I don't fully understand it. It'd be nice to have Rabbi Green here to explain that premise. It's one of the reasons, probably the only reason I really wanted to have him on. You know what I mean? But he's kind of difficult to whatever, So I'm not gonna like reach out anymore. But it would be nice to have him explain that part. Okay, so I think the problem that others see with Rabbi Green is that he knows too much. You understand? He's one of those guys who decided to be too smart.
Yeah.
Right? As I'm responding to your.
It's like my friend who said, "Well,
smart,"
Well, that guy actually, he admitted eventually that he made a mistake. He admitted it to me.
No, but I'm talking about the rabbi who said that.
Yeah. Absolutely insane. Absolutely insane.
Okay, so I just want to let you know that we should hear more stories about the great sages that we had. That might be one of the reasons why we don't know what a great sage is, because we're not listening to the famous stories about them enough. I think I tried to mention this when we're talking to Avi Abelo, where there's this one case where the Alter Rebbe, the first Rebbe of Chabad, of Lubavitch, right, in the 1700s. Okay, mm-hmm. I don't remember the context of the story, but he was traveling somewhere and with one of his companions who was one of his disciples. Okay, mm-hmm. And there was a sign in multiple languages, and one of his disciples was trying to read the sign. He goes, "I don't read French," as if that was some kind of virtue. Meaning, the way he said it, it was like, I'm so religious, and I'm so only interested in the language that the Torah is written, that I don't even understand French. I wouldn't waste my time learning that. I think he thought he was going to impress the Rebbe. Like, look how virtuous I am. I never spent my time learning some language that has nothing to do with Torah literature. Yeah. And the Rebbe said to him, "It's nothing to be proud of that you don't speak French." Yeah. In a sense, you should know how to speak French. You should know as much as possible. You should know as much knowledge as possible, as was available to you. Yeah. It's not something, and fine, if French was never available to you to learn, that's fine. You didn't have the opportunity, but it's not something to brag about.
Yeah.
Okay, so that goes to that. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That our sages, our real sages, our great sages, want us to know as much about everything as possible. Don't ignore an opportunity to learn something, because if you're being presented with an opportunity to learn something, as long as the process of learning doesn't break Jewish law, Torah law, meaning doesn't transgress, it's something prohibited, then take the opportunity and learn it. Don't go looking for it necessarily, but if you have the opportunity, then you should seize it, because that's God sending you something that you might need later. You don't know. Okay.
Yeah.
The point is, don't scoff at things that, you know.
Yeah.
So when that crazy rabbi, I don't know if you could call him a rabbi even, right, said to your friend, let's not be too smart.
Yeah.
That would disgust the true sages of Israel.
Of course. Yeah, when I heard that, I didn't understand, like, it didn't compute. And especially the guy that told me that, the guy who sought the counsel of this rabbi, you know, he works in the sciences. He understands how scientific publications work. He's not a scientist, but he has some kind of a master's in actually, no, I'm sorry. I think he has a bachelor's or master's in biology. Or bachelor, like, he understands how scientific publications work. He understands, he knows about issues within, you know, how they publish these studies. We had a whole discussion on Shabbos after this whole debacle. He and another friend who actually didn't take the vaccine, who majored in history of science, the history of how these things, you know, evolve. So we had a whole discussion, and I'm just like, what? But what happened in that moment that you just had like I don't know.
So here it is. So the true sages of Israel, right, were always the most knowledgeable people in general around. They were real Renaissance men.
Yeah.
Okay. They studied as much science and mathematics and history and culture and literature as possible, especially that which was involved in their locality. You understand?
Yeah.
A lot of times in smaller villages, the rabbi was also the doctor, because he was the only one who can read in general.
Yeah.
And he read, he was able to read like medical texts.
Yeah.
And whatever was necessary. You understand? Like, it's a person who made sure that he was as informed as could be. And if there was something that he was not familiar with, he would make sure to go to speak to an expert, and not just listen to the opinion of the expert, but to get the expert and explain it to him as much as is humanly possible. Like the real sage of Israel, the rabbi, right, just in the previous generation, would familiarize themselves with the topic as much as possible. And these people are brilliant. Okay, the average sage of Israel, okay, could get through medical school in like 8 months. Okay, because they're very serious. Because when they attack a subject, right, to understand it, to comprehend it, they really do it. They really go at it. They get whoever's necessary to come and make sure that they understand it. They're not idiots. They're not people who are going to sit there and say, let the experts take care of it. They are the shepherds. That means they have to guard their sheep. They cared about their people. They cared enough to learn, to rack their brain, to understand the material, and to get multiple perspectives on it. Okay, because they treated the congregation like their own children, like their own children. But that excuse me, like somebody who cares about their children, who's like fanatically like overprotective. Okay, because it's mandated by God that this rabbi is taking care of his congregation. They took their job seriously, and they didn't mess around, and they were smart enough to understand, because usually these people were the smartest people around in general. Okay, and a lot of times they would deal with very arrogant, like, secular scientists and stuff like that. And there's even modern day stories with Yoel Khan. Yoel Khan was one of the disciples of the last Lubavitcher Rebbe, the current Rebbe. Okay, and Yoel Khan recently passed away. Yoel Khan is an infinite genius, not just in Torah, but it's unknown. Nobody has ever plumbed the depth of his knowledge. He was, it would seem, by mathematicians who interacted with him, were shocked at the level of his familiarity with the most abstract levels of theoretical mathematics. He knew everything. That was common among the sages of Israel. Okay, the real one. And for those who are just tuning in, I'm talking about, bearded guys with who look like they could be in the cast of Fiddler on the Roof. Okay, that's what I'm talking about, right? So they wouldn't be so lax and just say, yeah, let the expert tell my congregation what they should put into their body. Look, even me and you, two dummies, we can read the medical literature.
Yeah. When I had a friend tell me, there's like, you got to leave it to somebody who's trained to read the data. I'm like, dude, are you like illiterate? Like illiterate? Like, you know how to you don't know how to read words and numbers. You don't know how to interpret basic things that are said in English on a piece of paper. Are you retarded? Oh, double blind, this, double blind. I'm like, dude, it says in plain language something. This causes this. Here's the amount of people that had issues from that. Then you open up theirs. Even if you want to say that there's people posting all kinds of stuff about being Incredible Hulk and One-Eyed Frank, I hate to say One-Eyed Frank, because that was actually a real person that I told you about. One-Eyed Frank on the FDR drive. Did I tell you the story?
No.
Okay, I'll tell you after.
All right.
A guy with one eye, some guy Cyclops, whatever. Even so, you're talking about more adverse events from this product in the previous 30 years combined.
75% of the animals tested died.
You don't need a degree. You don't even need a bachelor's in Peruvian basket weaving to be able to read this stuff. You just have to have sight, like vision. You need to not. The requirement is, here's the requirement: don't be Stevie Wonder.